Hey, welcome to the night shift. Right here we are. Everybody's gathering together. It's time for you to let somebody know that this is their moment to get here, and you're not going to want to miss the rest of the evening tonight. By the way, nobody is mad, sad, or looking bad but the devil. And we're going to have us a great time tonight. You're going to be hearing me and Dharius Daniels having a little conversation here that's going to be a blessing to you. And it's also just reminding you that he's going to be with us at Heaven on Earth. Heaven on Earth is going to be virtual this year. That means everybody, everywhere can watch it anywhere, and you can watch it however you want to. You can grab your little something to eat, put it on big screen TV, move furniture out of the way, and be a part of the Heaven on Earth experience. And just to remind you about Heaven on Earth, this is one of the opens from our Heaven on Earth Legacy Year. And then we're coming back, me and Dharius Daniels going to be talking to you.
Let's have a great time in the house of God. This is a song that talks about our legacy. We are believers. We are saved. We are full of the Holy Spirit. We are full of blessings. We have a promise on our life. We have a blessing on our life. So let's sing about this legacy this morning. Come on, lift your voices with us. The song goes like this. The wind is blowing. See, there is a sound, a burning fire. Come on, sing every age, every generation.
Every generation that believes receives
This legacy. Say mountains are moving. The Spirit is calling. Well, I pray on earth as it is in heaven.
This is heaven, heaven on earth.
See, we will not yield to fear. Say we will sing, we will sing.
Serve, we will shout the praises of God.
Come on, say the legacy of His hands.
The legacy of His hand.
God is with us. So this is our portion. Yeah.
This is our right.
So we are those who believe it.
This is our legacy.
Say it with me. The wind is blowing.
Flowing,
There is a sound,
there is a sound,
a burning fire.
burning fire.
Say every age,
Every age,
say every generation.
every generation that believes receives
This legacy.
legacy.
Say mountains are moving.
Mountains are
The Spirit is calling.
It's falling.
People are praying
People are praying like kingdom
on earth.
on earth as it is in heaven. This is heaven, heaven on earth.
Say we will not yield.
Not yield to fear.
That's it. We will sing.
We will sing, we will serve, we will shout the praises of God.
Sing the legacy of His hand.
Legacy of His hand.
God is with us.
God is with us.
So this is our portion.
This is our portion. This is our
We are those,
We are those who
and this is.
This is our legacy.
Say we will not yield. Come on, clap those hands and say this
We
morning.
will sing, we will serve, we will shout
Come on,
the praises of God. The legacy of His hand.
For God with us. This is our portion.
Our portion, this is our right. We are those who believe. This is our legacy.
Can we have some fun this morning? Put those hands together. Come on. Hey.
Legacy is an incredible song, and thank you, Richard Davis, for writing the music and taking some of the lyrics that I wrote, I guess, maybe a little bit. We kind of worked on it together, did a great legacy project, and it's great talking about legacy because this year, the Heaven on Earth is going to be incredible. And we've been going through about 3 years of transition by which Phil and Meredith are assuming the leadership of Cornerstone Church. And then we're just going to be in roles of overseeing and helping churches globally with a lot of things. And we'll tell you more about that later. But what I do want to let you know is that everything that happens great in your life begins with some kind of a seed. In the Genesis principle, that the seed of everything is in itself. Watch this. If a person wants friends, the Bible said they have to show themselves friendly. That's the seed. Show yourself friendly and you will receive friends. The seed of everything is in itself. And so right here at this moment, I'm going to ask all of my friends, wherever you may be, I'm going to ask you to grab your phone and text right here to give something. Sow something right here, right now, believing that you're about ready to hear something from Dharius Daniels and myself that's going to bring you into a place for your legacy, for your future, for your harvest. And I believe something great is going to happen. Sometime back, Dharius Daniels and I did a Zoom chat, and we were talking, and it's going to be about a half hour for you guys to hear us talk amongst ourselves, because a lot of times what you do is you hear us preaching either from a pulpit or at a conference, but sometimes friends like Dharius Daniels and myself, we just kind of get together and we talk. And we decided to put one of them on a Zoom chat so that you can hear it. And here it comes to you right now. I am coming to you again today. So glad to allow you to be able to see my face, and so glad because at least I can imagine your faces on the other side. I'm like every leader. In our hearts, we miss seeing your faces, hugging you, and being able to talk to you face to face, but glad for this particular technology. And some of you, I might kind of age myself on this particular thing, but Kathy and I were talking the other day about when we were growing up. We used to sit in front of the TV. Some of you will remember the old show, The Romper Room. And then that lady would get on there with that circle thing, and she would say, I see Tony, and I see Thomas, and I see Kathy. And you would just sit in front of that TV waiting for your name to be called out, almost like she could see you. But anyway, I have a lot of faces in my mind, in my heart, people that we love, people that connect with us really a little bit of everywhere. And so, amen, God bless you. So glad to come to you today. And you're going to be really, really glad that you did. If you want to take a moment and hit a share button or text somebody and tell them get on here right now, because we're going to put some faith in your heart, a yes in your atmosphere, and some joy in your day. And I don't know of anybody that I'd rather be talking to today to help me do that than Dharius Daniels. And man, what a time that we're in. And thank you for being with us today.
Bishop, I love you. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to have a conversation with you. It's interesting times. It's uncertain times, but exciting times.
Yeah, very much so.
I think so.
You were just saying something about crisis and the opportunity that is involved in crisis. Let's just start right there. Just drop that in there and let's go from there.
Yeah, I think all adversity, hidden in all adversity, is an opportunity. And if you will, it's like a gift, right? That's wrapped in wrapping paper. If you're willing to unwrap it.
Yeah.
Not just, sometimes we just look at the adversity, but if we're willing to unwrap it and dig deep, there is something of value that's valuable, and it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for organizations and churches, and it's also an opportunity for individuals. I know for me personally, individually, Bishop, I'm doing a lot of reflecting and reevaluating just priorities. You know, I'm in terms of, how do I want to live my life when this is over? What is this showing me about what matters most to me?
Yeah.
And just the how do I want to manage and pull out of this season everything that I can pull out, so that in some way this adversity in this season becomes an asset to me later. Like, I don't like suffering, so I don't want to suffer for nothing. If I'm coming out of Egypt, I want gold. Right. So That's where I am.
No, I think that you're absolutely right about that. And when you were talking about reflecting, I was thinking about here we are in the season of Lent. And
Mhm.
part of Lent is reflection
Yeah.
and, and repentance and reevaluation and penance, if
Yes.
as some people would term it. And it made, I'm thinking quite a bit the same way because every so often, he maketh me to lie down.
Yes. Yeah.
And it gives us a time to think and to reevaluate. Um, I mean, I have a list of things that I just wanted to talk to you about because I love the way that God uses you. I love your vibrant mind and the way that you're out there on the front end of everything. But I was thinking a little bit about this, about how events affect culture.
Mhm.
When Kathy and I were first married, which was 35 years ago, we were living above a widow woman in the church. We had a little room. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have a phone. You know, we were just living. And we were painting the house one day, and this older lady came up from downstairs. She owned the house, and she was taking the lid off the paint cans that we were painting with, and scraping that little bit of paint back into the paint cans.
Yeah.
And it made me realize she came through the Great Depression,
Mhm.
and that forever formulated in her mind that you don't waste anything.
Yeah.
And so the Depression was a shifting event that formulated the psychology and culture. And then so just kind of fast forward, when I think about the 60s were a shifting decade for sure in America, especially. It was a prolonged war. It was economic upheaval. You have the Haight-Ashbury movement, the hippie movement. LSD was legal. The Vietnam War ended up with more than 550 some odd thousand deaths.
Mhm.
You have the assassinations of JFK, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, all of our civil rights movements. And it's interesting that it ends with Woodstock.
Mm.
It ends with Woodstock, 500, not too far from your people in Jersey. It was at Bethel, New York,
Mm.
and some 500,000 people gathered there, and they announced the age of Aquarius. And then we ended up on the moon. Anyway, those events drastically, to me, shaped culture for a while. So what I'm thinking of is this the kind of an event season that we're in globally that will have an effect upon our collective consciousness and our faith, or how do you view that?
Yeah. So I think so. I think so. I think the question for me isn't if it's going to impact culture. I think there are some ways we can probably see and predict it's going to impact culture. And there are some ways it's going to impact culture that we don't see and we can't predict. I think the question is for how long, right? So even biblically, Israel would have these kind of experiences, whether it was plagues or pestilence or exile, and it would drastically impact like them and their social norms for a while until they get amnesia and then revert back to some of the same patterns. So this is what I think. One, I think a season like this it exposes some idolatry, I think, in culture and in church. Now, all of the things that competed for Sunday, like daggone, they're face down.
Yeah,
Sunday belongs to the church now.
yeah,
No football, no basketball, no malls, no movies, no, no anything. And none of that could help with this, right? That when it comes to what we're facing right now, we really do we need medicine and we need medical innovation. We need divine intervention, period, point blank. So I think that's one of the ways. I think it's exposing some idolatry. I think it's going to create some new innovation. I think we're going to be a more health conscious people when this is over. I think relationally, I think we're going to be stronger. I think some family units are going to be stronger and better as a result of this. And I think the entitlement that sometimes we can have with spiritual leaders in terms of taking the people in the pew for granted. I think the underappreciation, not entitlement, underappreciation. It's like sometimes as a leader, you're like, oh, it's 3/4 full. You know, now it's, we would give anything for it to be 3/4 full. So you got that. But then also on the flip side, I think it is also hopefully raising the appreciation of people, of the importance of the local church and the benefit of the gathering also. So I feel like those are some of the ways.
I totally agree with you on that. And I think it's both sided. And let me just take a moment to say to everyone, you're watching, our hearts are right here with you. Take a moment and share this, because it's going to be, I think, important as we start talking about repositioning what God is saying to us, or gaining from what God is saying to us in the midst of these circumstances. Because when you said something, I think we all have a tendency to take each other for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that from every side. I think that you're exactly right, that all of us have had people as a part of our churches that everything started crowding in on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now we can't be there on Sunday. We got this event, we got that event. And the local gathering became one of several options. Well, we might just get up and go to brunch, or we might just go to the lake or something. And so church just became kind of an option. And people, I think in some ways, some people took it for granted that I can just roll up there any Sunday and everything's going to be the same.
Yeah.
And then I agree on the other side that many times as pastors and leaders, it's possible to take the people that show up for granted.
Yes.
And you just figure they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And I have been reading and rereading a very known portion of scripture, but hearing it differently and reading it differently. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And how many times have we quoted that in our life? But right now I'm hearing it differently and seeing it differently. And I think that on the other side of this, we're going to value our times together better.
100%. And I think a statement like that comes from, it's birthed out of a context, not the same, but somewhat similar to this, where the people were aware of the privilege it is to get to go, you know, because it's like, when you're being exiled and your temple's being torn down and you can't go and you wish you could go, I think it increases an appreciation for it. And it also helps you see things that are really gifts from God that we just at times can assume are just entitlements that we have just because we're on this earth. Man, the gathering, the ability to come together, to shake a hand.
Yeah.
To shake a hand. Like, we can't shake hands. To give a hug. It's a gift from God. And hopefully we'll see that.
One of the things I love about church is, I'm a church guy, and I love it. I love all the things that go on in church. I love the funny stuff. I love the humanity of it. I love the divinity of it. I love all of it. And it makes you remember that sometimes I enjoy the different way that people praise. You know, you always have people that praise differently, but I get joy watching someone else's praise.
Yeah.
And then you feel like, oh, man, I don't get to see, brother so-and-so take a lap around the church, or somebody that has their own dance or style or however they do. You miss those things.
Yeah.
And so those are quite important. And I think one of the things I'm incredibly impressed with, and then you can speak to this, is I'm incredibly proud and just blown away by the continued faithfulness of the people who are connected to us. People still leaning in, catching us on social media. Some people for the very first time are setting up online in their house because they're at the church all the time.
Yeah.
Our volunteers are used to going to church, and someone had sent me a picture the other day. It really touched my heart. It was someone who had an online church service up on a big screen, and they were an usher. They got up that morning, put on their usher's outfit, and stood in front of that screen and said, "I'm on my post."
Wow.
And I thought, like, man, if that doesn't touch your heart and realize that God's people are incredibly resilient
Yes.
and faithful. And it's part of what I wanted to say to people, because it maybe it sounds simple, but as they say, trouble don't last always.
Yeah.
And we're going to be on the other side of this. And I just want someone to know that your present circumstance is not a permanent circumstance.
That's right.
And God put bounce back on the inside of you. He
Yes.
built you with a storm in mind. That house is going to be standing when the wind and the rain stop.
Mm.
I know that you have to. So you are in more than one location at present. Is that true?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So the Jersey area is where I've known you the most at, right? In that
Yeah.
area. So that's kind of like a ground zero getting hit right now. How do you find people dealing?
Yeah. Well, I think you hit it spot on. We found our people to be incredibly resilient. We say when New York sneezes, New Jersey feels it.
Yeah.
And we're seeing some of that in terms of the amount of people that are actually dealing with the virus.
Yeah.
And some of the steps that we're having to take in our state to even accommodate that. We've got, I think at this point right now, one site has not been identified, but there are 3 like convention centers that are being converted into hospitals for overflow patients and things of that particular nature, all up from North Jersey, all the way down to South Jersey in the Atlantic City area. So we are seeing that, but it is amazing how crisis like this, it not only alters people, but it exposes people too.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it exposes deposits that God made in previous seasons because he knew life was going to make a withdrawal in future seasons. And that's what we've seen that. We've seen people be resilient, committed to serving people and helping people during these times. And I've been, we're praying, but I've been greatly encouraged by that. But it is impacting our state in a very, 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 very powerful way. And I think it'll probably be a couple of weeks before we even see the extent of it.
Yeah. And we potentially have, I'll just use the word months. We potentially have months of recovery afterward.
Yes.
And so what I'm trying to encourage as many people as can is to think, how do I want to come out of this?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to take away from this? Because that's the strength. Most people, I've known a couple of people who've had some knee surgeries, and they will tell them that the surgery is the easy part. That once you get through that surgery, then you got to get into that rehab, and you got to do that because then that diminishes the time of recovery.
Yeah.
And if you don't do the rehab or the rehabilitation, if you don't do that part of it, then the surgery doesn't have its effect on you.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's kind of what Kathy and I and some of our team are thinking about. Not so much even as an organization. I mean, there's a part of that, but as Christians, as people of God, and to say, okay, I know enough about God to know I'm supposed to be learning something.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. I'm supposed to learn something right here.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm supposed to come out of Egypt with gold.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way that you're saying that because the history that you gave us a little bit of with the children of the promise was that, like here in America, the largest time of church attendance in American history was the Great Depression.
Wow.
And then the largest single Sunday of church attendance was the Sunday after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have a tendency to want things to go back to what we call normal. And so I'm looking for a new normal.
Yes.
And I think we're in a reset moment, a repositioning, a resetting. Do you have anything to speak on as it relates to that?
I do. I feel like it's weird. I can't remember the term I used. I was talking to someone recently about this. I feel like, I'll just frame it this way because I don't want to slide into any dangerous theological traps here. But I feel like God is so sovereign. He's able to, so an event like that, he's able to redeem cultural trauma in a way
Yes.
where it creates a shift in the mindset of a generation. So, for example, my great grandmother, I remember being a little boy, my great grandmother just would not trust banks. We would go over to her house and it's like, it's money in coffee cans, it's money in all kinds of places. So I'll leave, I'll leave that she had money in all kinds of places. I'm like, what are you doing? Until my parents explained to me what she lived through in that period in American history where everything failed. And it was amazing because she was frugal and wise with her resources. But it was this traumatic experience that God redeemed in a way that created a mindset in her where she knew, I got to have something aside.
Yeah.
And I feel like in we see that with Israel, like a traumatic experience culturally, it affects a mindset of a generation, and then maybe it starts to diminish after that. But that's why I really feel like we're going to see some of that. I think we're going to see it in the church. You know, I don't think once you've been exposed to something like this, I don't think you can be unexposed. I think there's going to be a shift in our generation in terms of the way we appreciate church, value God, value each other, value family. And that is, to me, some of the gold we're going to come out of this with. And watch this, Bishop. I believe we're going to have a better quality of life, a higher quality of life, even if it means a lower standard of living.
Say that again. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, because I think we assumed that high standard of living means high quality of life. They aren't the same thing, right? You can have great houses that aren't homes.
Yeah.
You can have incredible jobs and incredible careers that cause you to give the least, meaning to your family or friends, to the people that matter to you the most.
Wow.
This reset that you're talking about, I believe, is a reset that really improves your quality of life. I mean, you know, in our business, our line of work, our calling, we get to be with people in end of life situations. And I don't know about you, I've never seen anybody who was dying ask for anything. They always ask for people.
Always for people.
They never ask for things. They always ask for people.
Yeah. Isn't it an amazing thing that and I saw you walk around the theological part of it, and I appreciate you not creating any firestorms for me.
Yeah.
But I might create a little one here myself because I think that in part of the reset, you said something about crisis also exposes people.
Yeah.
I think deep down in the hearts of many people who are good people who love God, I get all of that, but they have never really worked through the theology that God is not angry with us, that Christ took all of our judgment.
That's right. Yes.
And
yes.
so then whenever something traumatic happens, they default back to God is punishing us.
Yeah.
And you know, if there's a tsunami or we're in New Orleans and Haiti, and I told someone was giving me that rundown, and I said, why is God only mad at people that live close to water? I mean, so I'm saying that as an amen to you saying how God redeems, because it is my belief that what God does not send, God uses.
That's right.
And he can take what the enemy means,
that's right,
evil, and then turn it for our good.
Right.
And I think that God is so genius and so redemptive that things that look like they were sent for harm, and there are many people that are being harmed. I'm not making light of that.
Right. Yeah.
But in the middle of that, as a people, we're going to come out better. And I think we're committed to that.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that has to be the anchor that keeps us steady, not just spiritually, but emotionally during a time like this. You know, I really believe the enemy increases his activity in the mental and emotional realms during seasons of crisis,
Yeah.
planting thoughts and false narratives in people's minds, building strongholds, doom and gloom. Using one of the things we're trying to encourage our people to do during this season: be informed but not obsessed.
Yeah.
Whatever you feed will grow. So I want to make sure you're being filled with this. Is why I think what you're doing is so genius. Let's fill our people's heart with faith, right? That's not being, faith isn't irrational. It's
Right.
rational. Doubt, we all wrestle with it because we're human. But when you're a believer, doubt is probably one of the most illogical things we can do, because when you look at God's track record, he has never not come through.
And he's never been defeated.
Yeah. So I think
that'd be a good place then to ask you, because of what you're saying there, is this question that who should people be listening to? Because obviously, I like the way that you said it. We say here, we're alert but not alarmed.
yes. Yeah.
And so we're alert, we're paying attention, but we're not alarmed.
Right.
And that doesn't mean unconcerned.
Right.
So there are many voices in the land, and many voices on social media. And when I think about repositioning, I think about one of the dangers that we have had in our current seasons of time in our generation is a lot of unauthorized voices
Mm-hmm.
of everybody that has a phone now is a prophet, or their dashboard is their altar.
Yeah.
And they always have a word or a correction or some kind of prophecy. And I think that has kind of clouded and crowded the proper mind space of
Yes.
people, because I think during times like these, we have to have proactive, proven leadership.
Yes.
And it's not the time for, rookies to get out there and be trying to tell the body of Christ what to do. So how should people govern what they hear and who they should hear from?
Well, Bishop, I feel very strongly about this. It's not the perspective, it's just mine. It is one, they should be listening to their senior pastor. Like when you're part of a local, but I think one of the things that social media did is sometimes, one of the things that, I'm not gonna say sometimes, I think one of the things it's done, unfortunately, in many cases, is it has caused people to choose local churches based on who they could get to physically, not just who they're called to. And so there are times people are sitting in churches and that senior pastor is not the dominant theological influence or spiritual influence in their life, because they're being inundated with so many different voices. And the Apostle Paul talked to Church of Corinth about this and said, listen, you got thousands of teachers. You don't have many fathers.
Right.
And so in this particular season, please don't get your primary voice confused with secondary voices. In a season like this, if a senior leader, based on the book of Hebrews, has been assigned to watch your soul,
Yes.
then the word and the direction your soul needs in a season like this is going to be on the heart of the one who God has put you on their heart, your senior pastor. So in times like these, we don't just need messages from the Bible. We need a word from the Lord that is coming from the person God has assigned oversight
Because
over my life.
they're watching for your soul, for your
Yes.
being, and trying to keep you on path.
Yes.
This is interesting the way that you said that. There's an understanding that this is potentially the first generation of people being raised without the input of their elders,
Mm.
and that most of their information comes from peers.
Yes.
And you had already alluded to the fact that of the impact that your grandmother had just in that one area,
Yes. Yeah.
because you were not separated from generations. And in today's world, there's not a lot of sitting at the table with the elders.
Yes.
There's not a lot of family dinners, and there's not a lot of listening. When we were coming up, we always wanted to get to the big people's table.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you got to the big people's table, you didn't get to talk, but you got to listen. But it gave us a perspective of I can tell you, sitting, we have 5 generations of Pizzas alive right now.
Wow.
And so that gives us a continuity of history and destiny. So so the biblical part of this, and then we can switch gears, but the biblical part of this is interesting to me because David was, the guy, the king of Israel. And then when Solomon comes along, Solomon receives counsel from elders, from David's friends.
Mhm.
And they told him, let's do it this way. And then he got around his friends, and his friends talked him into overtaxing the people to build the temple.
Yes.
And it's what caused the civil war there, because he listened to his peers rather than listening to his dad's friends.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I mean, I don't want to have to camp out there the whole time, but I think that you're right, that it has to be more at some level than a popularity contest or who has the cutest phrase or something. The question becomes, who has God assigned me to? Where am I supposed to be planted? And then
Yes.
trust God to speak in that environment.
Yes. It is. It's 100%. Bishop, I feel like when you look at in the New Testament, almost every commandment or set of instruction regarding how believers are to interact as it relates to church, the underlying assumption is you're in the context of a local body, that you're clear on, who I'm supposed to be one anothering with in terms of spiritual family, right? And then also who I'm supposed to be submitting myself to. Some of the commandments are impossible if you aren't clear on those things. So if I'm a believer, am I supposed to submit myself to the voice of every spiritual leader?
Right.
Absolutely not. The text is assuming I know the one that God has assigned to me. Now, that's whether I sit in those pews every week or whether or not I'm in Kuwait or Afghanistan or in London and have a virtual connection to this ministry. Whatever the connection is, the assumption is that you're clear, one, on that spiritual leader, and then two, that you're clear, which is the dominant word the New Testament used to describe the church, you're clear on who spiritual family is. And that spirit, and the diversity within that spiritual family should not just be ethnic, should not just be gender, it should be generational. God's generational God is spiritual, and family is multi-generational.
I love that. Let's turn a corner here real quick, because you and I can talk about particular subjects probably all day long. And I love your theology and your heart for the scripture. I love the way that you approach it with sacredness and seriousness. And so that means a lot. So that's my way of saying I could talk about that for a long time with you and learn some things. But I want to talk about this concept just for a moment, maybe, of the faith muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm saying that is because I feel like during these kind of times, we are learning to exercise faith muscles.
Yeah.
And maybe some muscles that we haven't had to use at that level. If you go outside and you're a jogger or you're running, you're exercising your leg muscles, but that's not the same thing as doing a push-up.
Yeah.
And then when you do push-ups, you find out it's a whole nother set of muscles.
Right.
And so it feels to me like we're in an opportunity for our faith muscles to be a little stronger. How do you see that?
I agree 100%. And I really feel like you can only learn about certain things in church, but you learn them in life.
Yeah.
Right? You learn about faith. We can learn all the different words for faith. We can learn about that through sermons.
Sure.
The way God teaches us how to exercise that muscle is through dropping us in experiences.
Yeah.
Where we have no option but to use it to sink or swim.
Yeah.
And I really feel like for most Christians, myself included, the tendency is for us to use faith as a response to crisis, when faith should be a way of life.
Yeah.
We live by faith.
Yeah.
We parent by faith. We give by faith. We serve by faith. And I really feel like you're right. This is not this is not just a suffering season. This is school in some sense.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual gym where I believe God is helping us all, no matter what level of faith we're at, strengthen that faith muscle.
Next word on this is the word trust. I know trust and faith are interconnected, but I feel like trust is kind of thrown around loosely. Well, I'm trusting God. So when we think about trust in these times, it seems to me like we're being tested to see if we're trusting. So talk to us about trust.
One, I think this is weird, Bishop, because when I look at what the Bible has to say about trust, I feel like trust is a choice.
Mm.
It's like when the writer says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, he is instructing us what we have the capacity to do. And the way I look at it is this. I've heard it said this way: whenever there's a gap between what God is doing and what you understand, you have a choice with what to fill that gap with.
Wow.
You can fill it with suspicion and cynicism, or you can fill it with trust.
Yeah.
And trust is needed when understanding is absent. If you have understanding, you don't need trust.
Yeah, somebody right there just ought to put a thumbs up or because that was worth your entire time of being with us right here. That trust is necessary when understanding is absent. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm gonna write that down as soon as I get off here.
It's all yours. I steal from you all the time. So,
so here's the thing. So because we won't hold everyone on here. There's two other things I'm thinking of, but I want to stay on this track because I don't want people to misunderstand our faith as just optimism. I'm optimistic, but faith is not optimism, or that we're being Pollyannish or anything like that. Because people that see us will want to know, how do we maintain our peace and our joy and our faith and our trust in difficult times? So when it comes to the concept of peace, speak about that.
So for me, I want to talk about two things real quick. One's my motivation for it. And that is, so this is what I mean. For me, I've learned, at least in my life, peace has to be pursued. Okay. Like just with the way, everybody's got to know the way they're wired. You know how some people are just like optimistic, and it's going to be okay, and everything's going to be great. And if they've been wired that way, that's great. I'm not wired that way. Yeah. So I'm like, what's about to happen here? That's the way my brain is wired. So for me, I believe peace must be pursued. And I try to pursue it because I know, at least in my life, the consequences of not doing it. It's torture, it's prison, it's destructive. I don't know what all Corona may destroy, but whatever it destroys, I got to rebuild. Mm-hmm. And I can't rebuild it if I'm trying to rebuild me. Got it. So some people may listen to what we're saying and say, oh, it seems so insensitive. It's hyper-religious. People are really suffering. People are really sick. And we're, like Paul said, I speak in tongues more than you all. We would probably say, yeah, we may be more aware of that than you all. Like, get that. Yet at the same time, we recognize that the best way to manage this is from a position of faith. And that means pursuing peace. And for me, peace is the product, not just of right prayer. It's the product of right thinking. Yeah. Love it. Whatever's lovely, pure, just, whatever. If I can spend all day in prayer, and then if I just inundate myself with all the news and all the Twitter feeds, there goes my peace. Yeah. So if I keep my mind stayed on God and on godly things, then God keeps my mind in perfect peace. Yeah, I love that. So lastly, perhaps, is that one of the things that I'm believing for, praying for, and believing is really on us is the prodigals coming home. And I started thinking about the number of times that, let's say you have a multi-generational family unit in one physical home, and for whatever reasons, part of the family gets up and goes to church most every Sunday,
and that's the alone time in the house that the other people have. And they're just sitting at home while part of the family goes to church, or however that works. And this is potentially the first time in a long time that church is now coming to the house
Yeah.
on a computer or a big screen TV, and they're turning the music up and praising with us like they're in the building. And now the absentee ones no longer have that house to themselves. And now they're in church because the church is in the house. And it's making me think how many people will be around families, and the Spirit of God will touch them, grab a hold of their hearts, and they're going to be surrounded by family that's going to say, we know how to pray with you today, and we're going to lead you to Jesus today. And I smile when I think about prodigals coming home.
Yeah. I think it's amazing because it's like the prodigals are coming home because God's got us in the house. You know, it's weird, is it? But think about this, and I just pray this for somebody that's watching. I don't believe that was random. I believe that thought came because God put that thought on your heart, because he wants to open someone's eyes to what he potentially might want to do in their house.
Yeah.
And so this is right. So this is like one of the ways God may say, I'm going to take what the enemy meant for evil and I'm going to use it for good, because what would you give me, or how would you see all of this if it meant I changed the eternal address of your husband?
Yeah.
Like, would it be worth it?
Yeah.
If I save your son?
Yeah.
Would it be worth it if your parent gave their life to Jesus? And for somebody that's watching us right now, this isn't random. By God's providence, I believe he's putting that out there because he wants somebody to release faith for that and to see this as an opportunity where God may want to bring that to pass in their house.
Well, brothers and sisters, that's what we're believing for with you, to put a little faith in your heart today, and to put a little joy, a little yes in the atmosphere, I call it. Wherever there's a no in the atmosphere, there has to be a yes in here. And there's a whole lot of no's going on out there. No, this can't happen. No, we won't make this. No, there's a whole lot of no's, but all the promises of God are yes and amen. And you're walking under a yes, and we just putting a yes in the room. And I got to tell you that I count it as an honor and a privilege to have friends. I would count Dharius Daniels as a friend, to have friends like you, Dharius, and to know that you are helping to lead our churches and generations and people that are listening to you. And we thank God for your life. And part of what my joy is to share some of my blessings, or gifts, I will call it, and to share you, because a lot of times people don't get to hear us just talk like this with each other. And I think for the people that I love and care about, I wanted them to have access to some great people like you.
Yeah. Well, it's been my honor, Bishop. I love you and respect you. And obviously I've been to Cornerstone a couple of times, and I love the house and the people there, just amazing people. And God has been faithful. This isn't, I know some people just think this is like church semantics. It isn't. Like, God's been faithful.
Yes.
And he is faithful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's going to bring us through.
Absolutely.
Bring us out better.
Thank you so much for your great words today. And everybody can remember to pray for Dharius Daniels and all the things and people, situations connected to him. And one day on the other side of this thing, we're going to have a big praise party, and we're all going to have testimonies on the other side of it. Dharius Daniels, thank you. I know you have a new book out as well. I didn't get a chance to mention that. I'm not really pushing things during these particular.
Me either.
But people can find you on social media, I know, and we love you. And I think should all things be well by October, you may be back with us at conference this year. I think, I'm not sure. But anyhow, we love you guys. Thank God for you and your family. Thank God for your churches. We're praying for all of you, and we want you to be strong, and we'll make it.
That's right. Love you, Bishop. Take care.
All right, talk to you soon. Peace. Well, the night shift is its own thing. The night shift has its own group of people and family that join with me from wherever. I pray that you let me know you were watching, and where you were and how you are. little thumbs up along the ways and those little hearts that go up are always a good indicator that you're hearing something and receiving something. I believe that the Bible is clear that those that receive of spiritual things should sow something natural. That's why I always take a moment, sometimes at the beginning and the end, to remind every person that has the potential, that has something to do, that has an ability to grab that phone of yours and text something to give, because it helps us to do everything that God has put in our hearts to do, and to bless people that you don't even know about, and to reach people that you may never see until we get to heaven. It's going to be a great thing. Listen, I'm getting ready to leave you on this night shift, but stay tuned right here just for 1 second, because Heaven on Earth is on the way, and it's all virtual this year. And here's the information on Heaven on Earth, and I'll see you next time.